Our next speaker, we are going to do raffles. So if you're a carrier and you're in the room and you have a raffle, go ahead and get that prepped. We will do that next. Our next speaker comes to us from the middle of Missouri. Is she in the room? Where are you, Becki? Okay, making sure I didn't lose you. So Becki is, she's been around for a while. She is so intent on being done with just people in general, though. She's moving out to the middle of nowhere for the bunkhouse. Is that what I heard? So Becki is building a home in the middle of the woods in the Ozarks. I was told by her team when I was with her earlier this week, I don't know what day it is anymore, to tease her a little bit for that. And I'm actually stalling because I'm on the wrong page here where her bio should be. Of course, things don't happen the way that they should. Just wing it. Well, that's what we do. I've been winging this whole thing. So Becki Jennings is the owner of Jennings Insurance Group. The agency opened in 2011 after she returned to Missouri from Boise, Idaho, where she lived for 20 years and raised her 2 daughters. She began her career in the insurance industry in 2007 and remains focused on senior benefits, including Medicare health plans, annuities, life insurance, and employee benefits. Becki is passionate about her clients and works to introduce legislation to help Medicare beneficiaries and clients in the state of Missouri. She's also a member of the National Association of Benefits and Insurance Professionals, which all of you should be. Join NABIP if you're not already a member of NABIP. Make your voice heard, where she serves as the legislative chair for the Central Missouri chapter. Becki joins them while they remain on the front lines lobbying in Washington, D.C. for brokers and their clients. And Becki, what are we talking about today?
Well, hopefully it'll be something a little bit inspiring, and I'm going to talk about adding estate documents into your practice.
Awesome. So Becki is talking about something, as she said, very inspiring. Of course, like most speakers, she's going to probably make us all cry and tell us something amazing, but she's also going to talk about adding estate documents into your practice. So with that, please join me in welcoming Becki Jennings.
I had a choir teacher one time, and the soprano section, she would have us stand up on chairs so we could reach higher notes. And one time I stood up on my chair, and she said, "No, Becki, get on your chair," referring to my height. So I'm up here today, so hopefully everybody can see me and hear me just fine. I was 42 years old, and I was moving into an apartment with my 2 daughters. I was single for the first time in 20 years. I really had my family was 1,500 miles away. I was leaving a marriage with someone who suffered from a lot of anger and a lot of depression. And I was in a job where I was 100% commission. I had no base salary. I had to figure it out on my own. I had a very tight budget. My dad had passed away years ago, so it wasn't like I could call my dad up and say, "Hey, Dad, can I borrow a few bucks for rent?" There was none of that going on. So I was moving into this apartment and really on my own for the first time. I had been a stay-at-home mom for 18 years. So you think about the fact that I was a stay-at-home mom. I had no skill set. I had nothing marketable that I thought that I could really tell anybody I could do, even though I was willing to work. This was actually an improvement. See, the year prior to this, we were losing our home. And as I said, I was married to somebody who suffered from a lot of anger and a lot of depression, and sometimes his work history was a little unpredictable. And you may say, well, why didn't you just go out and get a job and take care of things? Well, the problem with that is in the mix of all that, I was also married to somebody who was very controlling. And you live in a way like that for so many years, you allow those things to happen, you want to keep the peace, and you end up where you end up. And so there came a point where I said, okay, I cannot do this anymore. I have to figure something out. So the previous year, actually, we were losing our home. And at this point, I'm in Boise, Idaho, and we're living in a camper with no running water. That's where I had gotten to. And so anybody in this room who thinks that they are struggling or whatever, there's hope. You don't have to stay where you are. I think that's the message that I want to convey today, is no matter where you are, there's hope to go further and better. So we were losing our home, and I decided I was never going to allow myself to get into this position again. Now, in my younger years, I was an independent young person. I had my own apartment, I had my own job, I bought my own car, and then all these years later, I slowly got into this situation. And so there I was. My biggest asset, by the way, at that time was an 8-year-old Hyundai Elantra. And so that's what got me around. And by the way, just a plug for Hyundai, they will go a lot of miles. And and that saved me, actually, because I didn't have the pressure of a car payment. And that may seem like nothing today. I don't even think about it today, right? But then I would have probably had to choose between groceries and a car payment at times. And so at that time, I'm in this camper. I'm deciding I'm not going to do this ever again. I'm not going to allow this to happen. And I had a friend, and this friend, her name was Barbara. She's still a good friend to this day. And by anyone's definition, they're wealthy. But when we met, I didn't know that about her. Our kids were in gymnastics together several years prior, and we had just stayed in touch. But she knew the situation I was in, and she would do things like this. Becki, I need a favor. Do you think you could come and house sit for me? We're going on vacation, or we're going to be gone for the weekend. She never acted like she was doing me a favor. She always acted as if I was doing her the favor. And so I always appreciated that about her, because she did allow me to keep my dignity, and she knew the situation that I was in. So we're here in this camper, and I'm thinking I got to figure out something. And I get a call from my brother. And my brother says to me, hey, Becki, there's this thing I think you might be good at. Now, you have to understand where I was at this point. You don't have to understand, but I'm going to tell you where I was. I actually thought that I was maybe as attractive as an ogre and hopefully as smart as one. That's where I was, okay? So when someone called me and said, hey, I think I know something you might be good at, well, I was willing to do anything, because at the time I thought, well, maybe I can get hired at Lowe's, okay, and be a cashier. But then I get on the Lowe's website and I'm looking, how do you go from a cashier to a store manager? Because you see, I still had some kind of thing in me that said I wanted success. And so my brother calls and he tells me about this opportunity. I go, well, what is it? He goes, I don't know, you got to sell Medicare or something. Okay, I don't know what that means. I know no one in the insurance industry. I know nothing about Medicare. And but he's like, Becki, I think you would do good at it. I said, well, how do I find out about it? Well, I know this guy in Texas. He's the one that was telling me about it. Now, my brother is not in the insurance industry. Okay, he just has a friend. And so I called this friend and I said, what do you do? And he tells me what he does. And he does what we are all doing. And I said, oh, I think I can do that. And in my mind, I'm thinking I can either take a job and I can have someone pay me for what they think I'm worth and how hard I'm willing to work for them. But then my other option is I can bet on myself, how hard am I willing to work? And so when he told me what he did, I said, how do you do that? He said, well, you have to have an insurance license. And I said, well, how do you do that? Well, you just got to go to the Department of Insurance. At this point, I'm sure he was completely annoyed with all of my questions because I needed the details of how to get there. And so I very meekly, very shyly walked into the Department of Insurance in Boise, Idaho, and I said, how do I get my insurance license? And the woman behind the desk said, well, you got to take the test. And I said, well, how do I take the test? Well, you need to study and I'm going to date myself, manuals. So I said, well, where do I get the manuals? I bought the manuals and took them back to the camper and started studying insurance manuals that summer. And I highlighted everything, and I read everything, and I learned everything. And eventually, we got moved into another home. And eventually I passed the test. I took the test and passed it the first time. I couldn't take not passing it the first time, so I studied extra hard. And then I had my insurance license and nothing else. I had no resume, no nothing. And so there was 2 insurance companies at the time in Boise that did Medicare, and one was Blue Cross and the other was United Healthcare. Blue Cross at that time was the big deal in Boise, and they had this massive building with all this security. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, mind you where my mind is, right? I don't think I'm smart. I don't think anybody's gonna have anything, wanna talk to me. United Healthcare had just came into the area, and they had a very humble office at that time. So guess where I chose to go? I chose to go to United Healthcare because I could walk in. I'm sitting out in the parking lot, and I call my brother and I say, I'm in tears. They are going to laugh me out of there. They're never going to have, they don't, because I have nothing to show them that I've have any record of success. And so I walked in and I said, hey, I am wondering, are you appointing agents? And the girl behind the desk said, well, let me get somebody for you. Okay. So somebody comes out, they talk to me, and of course, they appoint me, right? It wasn't that hard, but I thought it was because in my mind, this was a big deal. And it is a big deal. You know, that's one thing that I want to say as I'm communicating this is what we do is a big deal. We all worked hard to get here. You had to pass your exam. You have to study. You have to be a student of your industry. And so it is a big deal what we do. We're impacting people's lives. So I end up getting appointed as a captive agent with United Healthcare, and for that, I could get some leads, and I didn't, because I had no money. This person I was married to, every time I'd write an app, and he found out I wrote an app, guess what he did? Worked less. So I could see where this was going really quickly. And so that continued for a short period of time, and I began to realize I need to really make a plan for my future. And so over time, I began to understand the language. I would go to trainings, and I would sit there, and everybody's speaking in acronyms. And I'm sitting there writing down acronyms so I can go look them up because I didn't want to ask the question of, you know, what is an MAPD? So I continued with this path for a short period of time. But what I began doing was I began to take all the things nobody else wanted. Now, mind you, at that time, in the captive arena, there was like 20, 25 people in the captive arena for United Healthcare and in that area. And so I was the only female. And there was a couple of employees of United Healthcare who were female, but I was the only female sort of independent in that space. And so I continued to take all the things they didn't want. They were cross-selling, they were agency owners, and I'm going through a divorce. I'm trying to figure out my life. I just need to buy groceries. And so that was back before they did all the DSNP training. And so I started learning what is Medicaid, how does it work with Medicare? And I began to figure out how to make that happen because those guys didn't want to go where they couldn't cross-sell. They didn't want to go to a certain type of home. They just didn't want to deal with all the questions and all the things that happen sometimes in the DSNP population. Well, so when all you're doing is trying to buy groceries, you don't care. You'll go wherever you have to go. And another thing I did during that time was every time I would get a commission check, I would go buy groceries. And part of my groceries I would donate to the local food pantry. Because I kept thinking, oh gosh, if this doesn't work out and I have to go get food at the food pantry, I want to feel like I contributed and not be the person who was taking and not giving. And so, guess what I never had to do? I never had to go to the food pantry. So this opportunity ended up being a very good opportunity for me. And I remember one day I said to my daughter, I go, man, I love doing this. If this doesn't continue to work out, I'm going to go wipe tables at the Golden Corral if that's what I got to do so that I can stay in this business because I am determined to stay in this business. And I'll never forget, she laughed at me, and she was young, you know, she had no idea what I was dealing with. And she said, Mom, you're never going to go wipe tables at the Golden Corral. You're just going to sell more insurance. And that is it was very prophetic because that's exactly what happened. And it's funny because when you're scared like that and you think, oh my gosh, this world is going to eat me up and, spit me out, you start taking action. If you don't take action, you continue to remain a victim. And none of us in this room are probably doing what we're doing because we want that mentality for the long term. We want to take control of what we have going on in the future. And so I continued to work the leads, do everything I could, ask for referrals. I continued to educate myself and all those things. And that turned into a job offer with the carrier. And I took that job offer because here's what they said. Well, we'll pay you a salary, you get a bonus, we'll reimburse your cell phone, we'll pay you mileage, you get health insurance, and I'm over here feeling like I'm neck deep in quicksand trying to survive this first year of going through a divorce and moving into an apartment and getting up on my own. And so I took it. And that was a very smart decision for me because guess what happened? I got trained and I got supported. So one of the things that I will tell you in this room, you are all in a different point in your career, and you have to make the decisions based on that. I would beat myself up, right, because I would think, oh gosh, so-and-so so much more, how do they get that successful? And I'm forgetting, they're second generation in the insurance industry. I'm out here duking it out, right, for every lead, and they have something coming in on a normal flow. And so if you're working for a carrier for a period of time, or you love that because you love the support, great. If you want to be independent and only work by yourself because you don't really like working with people, great, do that. The amazing thing about this industry is you have an opportunity to find a level of success that suits you and speaks to you and is actually something that is residing with you, in that you are continuing to think, that helps me be successful. We have people in our office, they don't want to go be independent. You know why? Because they want an office. They want a receptionist. They want the snacks taken care of. They want a annual party for their clients that they don't have to figure out. And they have found their own level of success there. So when you're talking to people, we don't have to pigeonhole ourselves into what we think is successful, because there's so many ways to do that. So at one point early on when I was married, one of the things, I'm going to touch on this briefly, I've never spoken about this publicly, but I think this is probably a good group of people that this may be something that resonates with you. One of the things that my former husband would do when he would go through these bouts of depression, and this didn't happen until several years into the marriage, was the threat of suicide. And so he would say something along the lines of, I'm tired of this. I don't want to deal with this anymore. So you know what that does to a woman who's not working, has no way out? It is horrifying. And so what happened through that was, after that happened multiple times, you kind of become numb to it. But what did I do? I started mentally preparing for being alone. And that actually ended up helping me later. And so it was very hard. It was a very difficult thing. And by the way, he's still alive and kicking. I'll tell you more about that later. So everything's good. But anyway, my point to that is, if you're dealing with that, you're struggling with that, please don't internalize it and keep it to yourself. Make sure that you're getting the help to work through that. And there is hope on the other side of that as well. So what happened was, one of the other things I will tell you during that time was, have you ever seen where they're going out to feed the alligators, and they've got the dead chicken on the fishing pole going over the side of the boat, and the alligators are coming out? You guys seen that? I'm looking for nods. Okay. And so the alligator jumps up and grabs that chicken. I was feeling, at that time in my life, I felt like the chicken. I felt like everything was about to devour me. And so I say this to you because I want you to feel like you have permission to encourage other women. You know, we don't know what the other people are going through. No one knew that was what was happening in my world. My own daughters had no idea that all that was happening with me. They're full-grown adults now and, and doing well, but they didn't know that those are the kinds of things that I was dealing with on a daily basis. So as a child, I wanted to be invisible. If I could have chosen a superpower, it would have been to be invisible. So for me to stand here and talk to you about these things, that kind of gives you an idea of what I was as a child and what I went through. And the fact of the matter is, I'm up here because for anyone who's struggling with some of these things, you don't have to struggle there forever, okay? You can grow, it's okay, and you can own what you're growing into. And so I had a sister who loved the spotlight. She still does to this day. She loves the spotlight. And I had 4 very rebellious brothers. And so, however, what that I realized today was I was quietly stubborn in my own way. And so that actually proved to come out in me later on when I was in survival mode. My dad would say to me when I was young, "Becki, you're stubborn as a Missouri mule." And I can't tell you how many times I heard that voice as I was going through those difficult times, realizing that owning my own stubbornness was really not a bad thing, and discovering that I had some grit and I had some determination. So as I went through this process, I was working for United Healthcare at that time, and I was doing very well. And I began to have a stirring of maybe moving on to something else. And it didn't make any sense to me because 2 years earlier, I was, struggling with this, feeling like I'm a chicken above the alligators. And now I'm thinking, I'm going to leave my safety net. And why is this happening? And I couldn't make sense of it. And so when after I went through my divorce, I sought out a counselor. And just to give you an idea of my personality, when I was working for United Healthcare, you could have 5 free sessions with a psychologist. And so I picked one out and I walked into his office and I said, "Listen, I can come and talk to you 5 times for free. If we don't have this figured out by the 5th time, we're done." I said, "We got to figure it out quick." And I just began talking, and it actually was very helpful. So fast forward a couple more years, and I'm in this place where I'm trying to determine what is it that's causing me to feel this stirring. And so I made an appointment with him, and I went and sat down, and I said, "Listen, I am in a very comfortable situation professionally. I love what I do. The people I work with are great. I have nothing to complain about, but I'm feeling this stirring because I wanted to move into the independent space." And I don't know if you've ever been to a psychologist, but really all they do is talk to you. Not all they do, but what they do is they ask you questions and lead you into you solving your own question that you have. And so this time he didn't do that. He said, I can tell you what is causing the stirring." And I said, "Okay, what is it?" And he said, "Because what you're doing now is not your destiny." And when he said that, it resonated with me in such a great way that it gave me permission to pursue what I wanted to pursue. And now I didn't have to logically think through everything. I strategize, don't get me wrong, I still strategize a lot. But I don't sit and wait for something to come my way. If I'm feeling a stirring, I'm going after it, and I'm going to try to figure out what I need to do to make that happen. Or I'm going to test the waters and see if that's really the direction I want to go. And so I want to talk to you about a few things that I've learned along the way. And I think and I hope that something that I talk about helps you in what you're dealing with today. With your agency or your business, I don't care if you're a one-man show, unpack your agency every year. What do I mean by that? I mean give yourself a couple of days every year to talk about, to think about, to write down what happened last year, what did I do well, what did I do not so well, what is my future plan, what do I need to pivot, what do I need to look at to make myself more successful for next year. Now, this is different than a business plan, and that's another thing. You guys all have to have business. You need to have. You can't write that fast. Oh, okay. You have to have a written business plan. I don't care if you're one person in this industry for 5 minutes or you're the most successful agency owner in this room, you should have a written business plan. It is vital, and you should revisit that business plan every year. That is different than unpacking your agency. The business plan is what you intend to do. What are your goals? The unpacking of the agency is things like, I've got this employee and here's what's happening. Do we need to make some adjustments? What is it that do we want to start offering employee benefits? And if we did, what does that look like? Would we have to hire somebody for it? Would we be able to manage that with what we have going on now? Does that make sense for what we're doing? Okay, so 2 things, unpack every year and write a business plan. The next thing is, when you're unpacking, do a SWOT analysis. Who in here has ever done a SWOT analysis? Okay, so for all of you that have done a SWOT analysis, you should be doing it every year or every couple of years. So let me give you an example of SWOT analysis. It's your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Let me give you an example of one of the things in each category for me. One of my strengths is I love working with my clients. I get so jacked when I'm able to sit down with somebody who walks in, either a couple's arguing about it or somebody's crying about it or whatever, and I can take them from that to being confident about the decision that they made. Whatever their decision is irrelevant. But now they've got confidence. That is a strength for me. But guess what else? It's also a weakness because I have a team of people who are always looking for leads. And I can't take over every lead, and because I get so energized by that, I still have to share those. So that can be a weakness if I'm continuing to take all the leads and do all of that. Opportunities show up all the time. And you have to determine if it really is an opportunity that fits in your business. We've looked at opportunities over the years, and we've spent time going down that trail to see, does this make sense for us? And ultimately, the staff really didn't resonate with them. It ended up going nowhere, and everybody was, doing it because I told them to, not because it was really working. So watch your opportunities, and if they begin to become a threat to time, money, whatever it happens to be, get rid of those. Just take them off the list and revisit it later potentially, but just because you think you want to go down a path, that doesn't mean you should keep going down that path no matter what. Sometimes it's okay to redirect. Another thing I've learned is women are resilient, and I'm going to tell you, my team is almost all female. We have one gentleman who does our financials and our financial solutions, and we accept him because he has 5 daughters, and so we allow him to be part of our group, and he's great. Don't get me wrong, he is wonderful. But women are resilient, and let me give you this example. I have someone in my agency, and she has 3 children. She's had 2 since she's worked with me. The woman has sat at her desk breastfeeding, doing emails. A man could never do that, right? And so women, we have an ability to do things far beyond what we realize we do. And let me say this, I love men, don't get me wrong, but I'm going to say, because I'm talking to a group of women, to give yourself credit for the ability that you have to roll your sleeves up and do what needs to be done. So another thing I will say is, when you're struggling with the grind, okay, we've all struggled with that. You're working hard, you're grinding it out every day, and you're not feeling very much response. When you're struggling with the grind, remember that grind is what's going to get you out of the struggle. Okay, you have to keep at it, stopping, taking a break, all that stuff. Yes, you have to take care of yourself. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that don't make the grind your excuse. Just because it's hard at a time or another doesn't mean it's an excuse to stop. Nobody's going to fill your pipeline except you. You're responsible for your pipeline. I don't care if you work for somebody or you sit back and take orders. If that dries up let's say you work for an agency owner and you're not doing anything, you're taking orders every day and you're not really doing anything to improve that. If that happens and your agency begins to start losing revenue and they're not continuing to be successful, your job is in jeopardy, right? This is sales. This is what we do. And so it's okay to own it and do it and make yourself better with it. There's no better way to become successful, in my opinion, than doing sales. And I would say that I probably have a good track record for it because once I opened my agency, I opened it in June of 2011. I moved across the country, opened my agency up into what I found out later was the black hole of Medicare Advantage. There was no Medicare Advantage to speak of there at all. And all I had written for United Healthcare was one Medicare Advantage product in Boise, Idaho. And I thought I was prepared. I thought I was ready to open my agency, and lo and behold, I didn't know all the research I should have done and prepared. Now I've got a daughter in school, and we've relocated. I can't just up and leave. So guess what I had to do? I had to pivot, and I had to find other opportunities. And so we did. It was not easy, but there was times I would say, oh gosh, I think I made a big mistake. What should I do? You know what I did? I started reaching out to carrier reps. I started reaching out to my upline. I started going to places that I thought would refer people to me. And I did all the things that Jessalyn talked about earlier today. And that's what I did. And there is no magic to it. It is just hard work. So I find that, there's three types in every aspect. There's the person who's going to be a victim and they feel like, gosh, this is so hard and, this didn't work out and that didn't work out. There's survivors. There's the person who tries to continue to better themselves and get out of a situation that they're in. And then there's people who conquer those things and become warriors. And those people are the people who you cannot stop them from being successful. They're going to be successful no matter how many obstacles come in front of them. I had somebody tell me one time, he was a skier and downhill snow ski. And he said, if I look at trees when I'm skiing down the hill, guess where I'm going? Straight into the trees. So what does he do? He looks between the trees. When you're finding yourself in a situation where you've got to figure out what you're supposed to be doing next, start looking between the trees. Don't look at the obstacles. Amanda talked today about all the issues with the Part D and the things that are happening. Do you know how great of an opportunity that is for us? You're a professional. You can articulate what they need to know. You have these are the years that you can exponentially grow your client base. And this is a year to take that opportunity. What you are today isn't what you have to continue to be. If you feel like today that you are just surviving, you don't have to stay that way. It was funny because one time I had somebody go, oh, you're just you survived. And I became almost insulted at that point because I thought, that happened a long time ago. I have long since gotten past being a survivor. And I feel like I have become a lot more than just a survivor because I didn't quit. Confidence. Confidence comes gradually. It's not like any of us woke up one day and we're like, I am amazing. None of us does that, right? There's days that are amazing. There's days that you probably are amazing. But you don't wake up every day thinking, I am just a very cool person. So it comes gradually over time, and you have battles, and in those battles you win and you lose, right? We compete for business with people. Things happen in your business that you have to. Sometimes you win at what's happening, and sometimes you lose at what's happening. But each battle begins to build competence. And if you fight a battle about a thing or another, I don't care what it is, and you win that battle, you're now competent to overcome that thing, whatever that is. And bigger battles bring bigger success. And bigger success brings bigger battles. I will tell you there are many mornings what I deal with before breakfast would have put me down for a week when I was in that camper. Okay, so what I deal with now, it's nothing but a thing most of the time, because now I understand I just have to figure out how to solve that problem, not that that problem is going to destroy me, because it's not. I hear people say periodically, you know, it's nothing personal, it's just business. I call BS. It absolutely is personal. It's personal for me. It is not just business, it's personal. When you have used your own blood, sweat, and tears and rolled up your sleeves and done everything you can do to be successful, and somebody swoops in and does something sometimes not really ethically, it is personal. And it's okay to take it personally because you care. You have permission to do that. I'm also going to talk about forgiveness. So I told you about my husband, who's not my husband anymore, but he is a friend, not a close friend, but he is a friend. And here's what I'm going to tell you I learned about this. And the reason forgiveness is important is because when we're competing with each other out in the marketplace, we're all still people, and we're all still trying to figure it out. And so after I got divorced, I'm a woman of faith. I'm very, if you know me, you would know that about me. And one day I was praying about forgiveness. And how do I move past this? Because I can sit here and tell you that he had anger and depression, but what I didn't tell you is I am an enabler. And so I had to figure out that my role in that was anytime he had a shortcoming, I was coming in and fixing that. And I thought it was just being a good marriage partner, because that's what I thought marriage was, right? Somebody falls short, the other one picks up. Well, when it gets to be in such magnitude, that's when you're in a relationship that is unhealthy, and that's when you wind up realizing that you've become an enabler, and it's not doing either one of you a favor. And so I was praying about this and trying to figure out, how do you forgive somebody and accept my part in it? And what came to me during that moment was this, that let me say it this way. If I had married someone in a wheelchair, I would have known I was marrying someone who was crippled. But I was young and I was naive and I didn't understand I was marrying somebody who was emotionally crippled. And it wasn't until I got older that I just didn't have it in me to continue to carry this person and try to help this person not be so angry, not be depressed, all these things to the point of exhaustion. And so when I realized that had I married someone who was physically crippled, he was emotionally crippled, it gave me really a permission slip to just say, you know what, he was the best dad and the best husband he was capable of being. Now, does he have a responsibility to do better and be better? That's up to him. That is on him. What's on me is if I decided that I wanted to forgive him, let that go, understand those were his shortcomings, but I don't have to be subject to it. Are you hearing what I'm saying? You can accept someone else and their shortcomings. You do not have to remain in a place where you're subject to it. So if you're continuing to operate in past knowledge and you learn more and you're not doing better, that's on you also. So when I learned that I was an enabler, guess what I am not today? An enabler. And I have to call myself out on it, because it took me years, literally years, to overcome that. I would have people come into my agency, and I had an assistant, she was horrible, and I would still try to help her do her job, because I wanted her to succeed more than she wanted to succeed, actually. So, the other thing is success is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. You don't just wake up one day and go, I'm totally successful. I don't care if you win the lottery, you're still not successful immediately. It is a process. And another thing I'm going to say is don't apologize for being successful. Own it. I was having dinner once with a group of ladies, and they were new into the industry, and they were all starting to have a level of success. And one of them shared that there was one of her clients who made a comment about the house she had just built, and how, wow, insurance must really pay well, and how she felt like defensive, like, oh gosh, no, I just, whatever. And she shrank back. And I remember in that conversation saying, what you should say is, yeah, it does. When you work hard, you can make as much money as you want to. Own it, and don't apologize for it. Fear comes in many forms, and it arrives at different times in your life. If you think that I never have to struggle with fear, or the person next to you never has to struggle with fear, you would be mistaken. So I had a time in my life where I would be in bed in the middle of the night with the covers up to here, so terrified I couldn't move for no reason. There was no physical reason. It was horrible. And I had to overcome that fear and logically force myself at some point, after months of dealing with it, to begin to get myself out of bed in the middle of the night and do these things. So I overcame this fear. Years later, I'm in this position where it's time for me to get out on my own, and guess what I was again paralyzed with? Fear. Not the kind where I was laying in bed and I couldn't even remove the covers and step out in the dark. It wasn't that kind of fear. It was the fear of not feeling like the bank would let me have my own bank account. Isn't that crazy? I was thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want to walk into the bank and ask for open a bank account. I needed to because I was starting to make money. But I had myself convinced out of fear that they would say no. It was ridiculous. I look back on that now, but fear's a real thing. Once you stop learning, you have become all you can be. You cannot be teachable. If you're not teachable, you can't continue to learn and you can't grow. So this is when you have to decide if your vision, I want you to hear me say this, is your vision bigger than your ego? When your vision for your life is bigger than your ego, that's when you have the opportunity to succeed, because guess what now has happened? You no longer fear failure. You no longer feel failure because your vision is so important to you. You're willing to get counseling, you're willing to make mistakes, you're willing to get opinions, and then you're willing to strategize on your own success. So if you have reached a point where your vision is more important than your ego, you better write a business plan, okay? You better write a business plan, and you better unpack your agency. So I hope that some of those things helped or maybe resonated with some of you in this room, to give you an idea of what's happening in my future. I have a book coming out after the first of the year, which I'm very excited about, and thank you. Interestingly, it is not my story that is coming out. I actually am co-authoring this book, and the concept is teaching, basically it's teaching concepts through language, how do you teach a person financial services concepts? And so we teach the 3 financial phases and the 5 risks in each of those financial phases. Now, why does this matter to you? I'm going to tell you that it is sometimes a natural path to go down to offer different types of business than just the one. We talk about diversifying and things like that. How many of you have ever been told, oh, I got this 401k, I don't know what to do with it? Anybody in this room ever been told that? How many of you refer that business out to a financial planner? Anybody? You might want to reconsider that, because guess who has the relationship with that client? You do. You paid for that client to come in your door, and being able to diversify what you can offer your clients may be something to consider. Today, I have 8 employees. We do Medicare, that's our primary door opener. Everybody's got to figure out what to do. They got a deadline. They got to figure out something. We have employee benefits. We're not huge in employee benefits, but if somebody's referred in, we will help them with that. Local employees primarily. We do marketplace, of course. We have financial services, and we also do estate documents. And one of the things on the agenda for me to talk about today is that estate documents. So let me give you an idea about what has happened to us. So I started out, I'm schlepping sales kits out of the back of my car, happy as a clam, love my clients, no worries. And I meet somebody. He says to me, Becki, you're sitting on an acre of diamonds and you don't even know it. Acres and acres of diamonds. I didn't understand what he was talking about. I was perfectly happy. And he said, you have a lot of financial opportunities that you're not really considering. And so one day, a few months later, my uncle passes away. My aunt calls me, they're out in Wyoming, she calls me and she's trying to figure out her Medicare and I'm helping her through it. And in the course of that conversation, she says, man, your uncle left me this 401k. Edward Jones is after me, the bank's after me, I don't know what to do. And I said, hold that thought, because I know somebody that can help you. We worked that case together and we've been working cases every day ever since. And so there is opportunity out there. The problem is, we've all probably been in meetings where you have the annuity guy up there saying, oh, you should offer annuities, and you're like, yeah, I'm not going to learn all that, and I've got plenty on my plate. There is a way that you can transition some of those clients, but more importantly than that, what we do in our agency is we offer estate documents. And so at the end of Medicare appointments, when I'm talking about the other things that we do, one of the things that I will say is, do you have a medical directive? Oh, no, but I sure need one. Well, guess what? We can help you with that. And so we're able to help our clients get through that process, financial power of attorneys, medical directives, medical powers of attorney. I have worked through our client process personally, and it can be very rewarding. And I'm going to tell you about two people. Here's the first one. We have a client who came in because of Medicare, and it was a couple, and they came in, we helped them with their Medicare, and then they decided they needed to move forward on their estate documents. Sometime later, a few months later, we get a phone call from the husband. They've life-flighted my wife to the university hospital. The local hospital can't help her. I don't know what I need. I'm driving there now. I need to know, does she have the right insurance? Are we going in network? What do I need to know about that? And also, I think you guys have my financial and medical power of attorney, and I also think you have her medical directive. We had all of those for him. We were able to take care of that. So he gets to the hospital. He's able to speak on her behalf. He's able to access her 401k so that when she comes home and they've had to redo things in their home, he has access to those finances. She couldn't speak or anything for a period of time, and so we were able to help him with all of those things. Guess who's never going to leave our office? Okay, never going to leave our office. And so those are the very rewarding things. I could tell you stories and stories that would just be amazing for you. Another one that we had recently, she came in for Medicare. She was a referral from our client, and she came in, we spoke with her, we took care of her Medicare, and she saw a sign on the back of my desk about helping her with her estate documents. Oh, I've been needing to do that. Guess what? She was worth a lot of money. And guess what she didn't know what to do with? So our financial professional in our office was able to help her not because we asked her how much money she had, but because we helped her with her estate documents. If you want to find a more rewarding, deeper relationship with your clients, that is a great opportunity for you to do. Within the first probably year or two, we doubled our agency's revenue. And this year, just on financial, from last year to this year, because we've gotten very good at it, we will be we're on track to triple our revenue for the agency just on financial services, not including Medicare. So, thank you. I want to tell each person in this room that no matter where you are, I was in a camper with no running water. Today, we're dealing with millions of dollars with our clients. And guess what? I'm completely comfortable doing that. Do you know why? Because I kept working, I stayed with it, I educated myself, I became a student of the industry, and I love the people that we're able to impact in our agency. And so those are the driving factors. And I hope that some of the things that I mentioned to you are things that will help you better your situation, and maybe find other people that those people share your same vision. And I couldn't do what I do now without the people that I'm working with. And so anyway, I hope that's been very helpful for you today. And I'm going to be around if you want to have a conversation. I'll be here for a little while. And anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Becki. That was wonderful.